The very first thing is that, in order to get better, you change limits. And when you change limits, you're going to look bad and you're going to fail. And at West Point, I learned that failure was never a destination. In other words, when you are knocked back, figure out why and then change. The other thing is that you're not going to get there alone. Be on a team. Surround yourself with good people and learn how to listen. You're not going to learn with you just talking. And when you do talk, converse. Don't make excuses. Figure out the solution, and you don't have to figure it out yourself. I always wanted to be a part of a team, and obviously I wanted to lead that team. What an interesting life it is to be a leader.
More V-Show with Bob Valvano is now, right here on ESPN 680 and 105.7.
We roll on here on Hall of Fame Week, presented by Kentuckiana Friends of V. Check out kfov.org if you want to help us in the fight against cancer. This is a guy who's helped us in the fight against cancer many times. Among his many accomplishments, his charitable work is legendary, but his legendary work has come on the sidelines where if all I did was read the number of Hall of Fames he's in, we wouldn't have any time to talk to him. But he's in the Naismith Hall of Fame for 3 different reasons. He's in a number of other Hall of Fames, including the College Basketball Hall of Fame, the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame, the U.S. Military Academy Hall of Fame, the Polish Hall of Fame, but he just got named to the FIBA Hall of Fame for his work with our national team. And I don't have to tell you any more than that. You'll know it's Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, who joins us right now. And that last honor just came recently, so congratulations on the FIBA Hall of Fame.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. It was quite an honor, to be recognized by the International Basketball Hall of Fame, FIBA. They represent over somewhat like 245 countries, and the work that we did when I was the national team coach for 11 years, we had a lot of success. Gave me that opportunity. I want to thank my players. Whenever a coach gets in, it means you had good players who actually performed great and won something big. But it's quite an honor.
Tell me, we got so many things I want to cover. Let me start there. You took over the national team at a time when I think it's safe to say it was in the most probably disarray in the history of our national team. We had really struggled at the Olympics, kind of embarrassing as a matter of fact. And you guys came in, you and Jerry Colangelo largely came in and restructured it. How much, I don't mean to have you badmouth anybody, but how much of a mess was it when you took over?
Well, I don't think it was any one person's fault. It was the fact that we did not have a USA basketball. It's not any one person's fault, except that we didn't have the leadership, and that's when Jerry took over. You had an exceptional leadership. You needed to build a culture and an organization and learn the international game, not play the U.S. NBA game internationally and try to impose your will on them. The game is different, and so you have to respect what was going on all over the world. We brought in international officials. We had we got international scouts, and we trained longer. We had longer training camps, and we learned that game. But we also learned that building a culture, an environment that could be passed on to other teams, including our youth teams, was important. And that was the goal was not just to win the gold medal. The goal was to win the respect of our country and the respect of the world. And Jerry was really a great leader in that. And I just thank the players for making the commitment that they did. A number of them in more than one team. It wasn't just the 3 Olympics. We won 2 world championships. And the amount of players that did that, Carmelo Anthony did it 4 times. Wow. Kevin Durant 3 times with me, and then has done it a 4th time. So you need that commitment from the players, and they were terrific.
Your resume, of course, is very powerful, but let's be honest. These NBA guys, generally, their reputation is, well, they don't really care what you did at the college level. They want to know what you do here, and you had the very best of those players.
Right.
How was it hard? Were they receptive? Talk me through that part of the culture. I'd like to know how that process went.
Yeah, no, they were very respectful. I think they respected the fact that at my level we were as good as anybody. I'm not saying we're the best, but we're as good as anybody, and we did it for a long period of time. So obviously they want to hear what you have to say and what you're doing, and they embraced me right away. And I embraced them, and we tried to build a culture, and we did build a culture where everyone brought their egos in, put them under one ego umbrella called the USA. We learned to not just play for the USA, but to be the USA and how we feel about representing our country. And but we created standards, of how we were going to live together. We had a standards meeting and came up with 15 standards, and we held each other accountable to those standards. And the standards are easy, be on time, have each other's back, be strong all the time, no excuses, never a bad practice. These are just fundamental things. But if everyone owns them, if everyone owns it, you have a greater chance of accomplishing it. And these guys embraced that. They wanted to be held accountable. And you know what? They wanted to win. They understood that the only question anyone would ever ask them would be, did you guys win? And so whatever amount of minutes, shots, or whatever, as long as it turned out to be the U.S. winning, they were all in.
I read your book. As brilliant and accomplished as you are, at your heart, you're still a coach, and your international record was 88-1, and that one
Right.
still sticks in your craw, doesn't it?
Well, you know what, though? It's kind of like in college, or in anything. Why did you lose? Instead of making excuses, find out the reasons why. And we lost the very first competition we were in 2006 because we had not set up this culture yet. We were still trying to do it the old way, although we did practice and the guys played hard. We didn't know that game as well as we should. And so once we learned that game and did the things necessary in preparation, we won 77 straight games. And that was a key. Actually, if we didn't lose, I'm not sure we would have built the same culture. Yeah. And we lost to a great Greek team who were the Euro champions, and we played one bad quarter, which shows that you don't necessarily have to play poorly a whole game, but if you play poorly in a tightly contested game for a certain period of time, even though it's not that long, you can get your butt beat. Yeah. And we did, and you accept that. But a cool thing happened from that. After the game, at the press conference, they had their coach and one of their players and me and Carmelo Anthony, and they asked the losing team's player the first question, and Carmelo was amazing in answering it and giving credit to the Greek team and whatever. And the next couple months, and never making an excuse, the next couple months, obviously, we got some heat, LeBron and all the guys, you lost again, the U.S. lost, and everyone accepted, I call it collective responsibility. We win and we lose together. And we met the next summer to qualify for the 2008 Olympics in 2007. I thanked all of them. A number of them were still on the team. They wanted to win. And I thanked them. I said, you guys we were collectively responsible in a loss. And I said, from now on, we're only going to be collectively responsible in a win because we're going to keep winning. But it starts sometimes when you get your nose rubbed in it. If like at West Point when I was a cadet, we had a mantra: "Failure is not our destination." And you get up and you find out why you failed, and then you make sure that doesn't happen again, and our guys did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Krzyzewski, who went to 13 Final Fours, 15 ACC tournament championships, 13 regular season championships, and, of course, the top of that list is the 5 natties, 5 national championships. But this is a little bit not only of Hall of Fame week, it's kind of, this is your life. So let's go back a little bit. You turned out to be one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game, but when you were a kid, did you want to be a coach? Because I got to ask, and I don't mean this in any way, snidely, but if you want to be a basketball coach and you're a kid, I don't think you say, you know what, I'm going to go to West Point. That's the hotbed of basketball coaches. So how did it evolve into your coaching career?
No, that's a great question. I knew I wanted to be a basketball coach and teacher when I was 16, and when I was a junior in high school, and I was an all-state player and obviously the best player on my team. And I had a coach, Al Ostrowski, who made me better. And I didn't know that could happen. I thought I was already good. And he coached me hard, fair, and I loved him. And then I went to a Catholic boys' school, and Father Rogue was one of my teachers, and he became a mentor for me until 2 years ago when he died at the age of 91, and he explained faith to me, like being Catholic and where I had a hard time understanding everything at that time. And those two guys had an impact. I said, I didn't know people could do that, could have an impact on others like that, and I wanted to do that. And so the reason I went to West Point is because of my parents. I was either going to go to Wisconsin or Creighton. And again, I was an all-state player, and Coach Knight came in late my senior year. And after he left our home, my parents said, "You're going to West Point." And I said, "I'm not going to West Point. You guys got to be nuts." And my mom, their parents came from Poland. My mom only had an 8th grade education, but was wise as can be. My dad, 2 years of high school. And my mom says, "Mike, that's where presidents go." And I said, "Ma, I don't want to be a president. I want to be a point guard." And it's a true story. And then I told Coach Knight no. And for 2 weeks, every night in Polish, they're talking about me, and how can he, and then stupid Mike, how can he, anyway. And finally, after a couple of weeks, I said, "I'll go." And I was still able to get in. And Bob, I call it the best decision I never made.
That's a good way to put it.
And going to West Point changed my life. And really, West Point is the best school for leadership. So if you want to be a coach, you want to be a great leader, or as good a leader as you can be. And you're constantly teaching when you're an officer or you're becoming an officer. You're being taught, and then as an upperclassman, you're teaching. So you are actually in a very educationally motivated, built environment. In the 5 years I was in the military as an artillery captain, I learned that more. So, but I never lost my sight on being a coach. I've lived my why my whole life. What I wanted to be, I've been, and because of being in those with opportunities and the great people that I had been associated with, it's really like being a coach on steroids. Like who. Like, all right. And I think about it, like, if I didn't listen to my mom and dad,
how life might have been different.
It would have been different. Not bad, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But not this very special life that I've been so lucky to live.
Yeah, Mike Krzyzewski's with us. I have to tell listeners this. He's a gentleman, and I've known that from our board meetings and our interactions, and he's a wonderful guy. But I didn't realize how nice a guy he is. I've known you now, it's got to be going on maybe 30 years, close to it anyway.
Yeah.
And you have never once brought up the fact that in all the times Army played Rutgers never beat you. My brother's team was never successful against Coach K as a player. I know that you had some good rivalries.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that Jimmy and I, competed as players, as coaches. Him at Iona, me in West Point. We came down to Tobacco Road here.
Same year. Yeah.
And then Kremens came the year later, so it was like an invasion of the Italians, Polish, and Irish coming down to the ACC, and it was never the same. And your brother and I didn't really care for one another for most of the time, and then because we're competing,
sure,
and not care for it, we respect it. But then when he got out of coaching, we became great friends, and obviously in the last half year of his life, we became really, really close. So the Valvano family, all you guys have been very special in my life, and we've done some damage against cancer.
Yes,
too,
we have.
Absolutely. With the V Foundation.
And we're trying to do more here today. If you want to be part of helping us here, KFOV is the website, Kentuckiana Friends of V, local cancer initiative, and Mike Krzyzewski kind enough to join us on Hall of Fame week. I want to ask you this, though. I'm always learning. I was going back through your resume. I knew that you went from you were your active duty, and then you went to be an assistant at Indiana for a year on that team that lost one game, and then you got the Army job the following year. But let me back up a little bit. It said in between that time, while you were in the service, you coached service teams. I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? What were you doing?
Yeah, well, in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, there were all Army and all Armed Forces teams, and I was able to be on an all Army and all Armed Forces team. They actually played in what they call the CISM games, the Council of International Sports and Military. And it's kind of like a military Olympics. And so I wasn't the starting guard, but I was one of the guards on those teams, and kind of served as a scout and assistant for Hal Fisher, who coached the teams. And we've played in 2 CISM games, one in Damascus, Syria, and one in Tehran.
Wow.
Imagine that. Yeah. I mean, that's like, wow, almost over 50 years ago. And then after I was in Korea for a little bit, and then my last assignment was at Belvoir at the West Point Preparatory School as a training officer, but I coached their basketball team, which is like a freshman college job.
Okay.
And so I tried never to get away from basketball.
I guess.
I was fortunate not to, and I probably got more training doing that than I would have doing something else. It was just very opportunistic. And when the time came, you have a 5-year service obligation after West Point, and I resigned my commission. Mickey and I were married and had our first daughter already, but I wanted to get my MBA. I felt if I had my MBA, I'd be a better college coach. And so was a graduate assistant and went to 1 year of school there. And I was an MBA dropout. I got the West Point job at 28. But Coach Knight was good enough to give me that opportunity. And that team that lost only one game, in the next year they didn't lose a game. Really, the team that lost the game was probably better.
That's what I heard. I heard Coach Knight say that repeatedly.
Yeah. But Scott May broke his wrist late in the year, and we lost a very difficult game to Kentucky. And but I learned a lot. Played at Army on really good teams. Don't get me wrong. And then you're coaching the West Point Prep School, and all of a sudden you're coaching the number one. You're not coaching. You're doing mostly observing the coaching of the top team in college basketball, Indiana at that time, and as good a coach as there have been in Bob Knight. And what an experience, This is a quick story. We start practice, and these old drills, zigzag, where
Sure.
you're picking up full court and whatever. So at West Point, we did that as a player every day. And so we go through 2 practices with Indiana's team, and I do a little bit in the practice. I'm not an integral part, but part. And we go to the coach's locker room afterwards, and I finally get the courage. They never did zigzag. So I said, okay, I got to ask Coach Knight. So I said, Coach, how come we haven't done zigzag yet? And there's a pause. He's at the other end of the locker room. He starts walking towards me, and I said, oh, damn. That was a dumb move. I'm going to get killed here. And he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he said, Michael. And then he paused. He said, there's a big difference between you and Quinn Buckner. It's a true story. And I understood fully. I needed to do that. Quinn Buckner didn't need to do that every day.
That's a great story.
So coaching it's a good lesson, And he wasn't being cruel. He was, you adapt to the level of talent you have and how you teach it and whatever. There's not one template for teaching.
Yeah, you did that. I mean, you changed the way you coached.
Oh, yeah.
Just in your time at Duke. I mean, your teams at the end of your career.
And with different great players. How you coached Hurley, Leitner, and Grant Hill together was different than you coached Battier and Dunleavy and Boozer and Jason Williams together. And that's the beauty of the game. The game isn't played one way. It's played a lot of different ways, and it's all as long as you have a culture that's the base of what you do, and you don't really change that much defensively in what you do, except points of pickup and how you handle certain situations.
Let me ask you a couple more things before we let you go. Mike Krzyzewski, gracious enough to give us some time here on Hall of Fame Week. All the guests this week, Hall of Famers. And Mike could do every segment because he's in like 15 different Hall of Fames. But we're delighted to have him with us. You were asked many times, many publicly, and I would guess behind the scenes, probably others, to go to the NBA. Were you tempted?
Right.
How tempted were you?
A little bit. In 1990, Dave Gavitt had taken over. Dave Gavitt was really, I think, as smart and good a person at the collegiate level in administration, not just coaching, but administration as anyone. If he was here today, we wouldn't have all this chaos in college sports. And he took over, and I had a great relationship with him, and he offered me the Celtics job. And I grew up. I mean, you grew up watching the Celtics and the Lakers, at that our era. And so I said, I got to look at that, but I couldn't take it. And actually, the next 2 years, we won 2 national championships. And then the other real serious one was in 2005, and the Lakers. And that went further with a pretty big offer and everything. And
was it true that Kobe was really pushing for you for that?
Yeah. And we had recruited Kobe. And yes, he was. And then I was fortunate to coach Kobe twice with the Olympic teams in 8 and 12. And and I was considering a change. How old was I? I was 57 at that time, and I said I'll probably coach for another decade. Should I go now? and we decided we loved Duke and we loved college, so we stayed. And about 4 months later, Jerry Colangelo offered me to be the first national team coach for the United States.
Wow!
And although it's not a paying job for either the players the honor of doing it and then being able to do it for 11 years, that I'm glad, I'm honored, and I was so lucky to get it. And I would have missed not ever coaching NBA players because they take it to the highest level. And if I was coaching today and I was 57, I would be more apt if it was offered to be an NBA coach than a college coach.
Because of the climate in college, you mean?
Yeah, and look, it is what it is, but it's professional sports right now. And if you're going to do professional sports, you might as well do it at
The highest level.
at the highest level. I mean, nothing against what's happening in college. I mean, it's changed. Let's go for it, you know. But I think it would be pretty easy for me if the right offer was made. I'm almost positive we would go to the NBA.
Well, your life, though, seriously, not to make it, like a Hallmark movie, but I mean, just 3 things you've told me now. If your mother and father don't push you, if you say yes to the Celtics, and if you said yes to the Lakers, you don't coach the national team, probably.
No, all those things.
All these really dramatic things in your life would never have happened. No,
and thank you for being that observant to point that out, because I have thought about those things. And, you're really a product of the decisions that you make. And if you're lucky enough, you have good decisions to make during your life. But I never made a decision for money, although we've made a lot of money, don't get me wrong. And I want to make money. But the ultimate decision was not based on money. It was based on what I wanted and loved to do, and as a result, we made a good life for ourselves,
Yes, you have.
loving what we do. And again, I feel lucky that I've been able to do that. But in those moments of decisions, I didn't make them alone either. I made them as a family team and getting advice from a few of the people that I really trusted to give me counsel during that time. And it's something I tell people all the time when I speak. Don't as a leader, don't be alone. Like let other people in, and because other people can make you better, and you don't see everything, you don't feel everything, you don't know everything. And but if you surround yourself with good people, they'll give you good input, and they'll care about you. There won't be other reasons for giving you information. There's only one reason: I want to help you, and here's something that can help you. And again, I've been around I have a great family, and I've been associated with just really good people, and it's the best.
Yeah, it makes all the difference. It absolutely does.
It's the best.
2 things before I let Coach K go. One kind of follows up on what you just said about giving advice and when asked for and being around good people. I know because I've spoken to John, but I'd like you to elaborate if you can. Your relationship with John Shire since he took over, I think you have absolutely mastered that. You gave him room to be him, but I know you speak with him quite frequently. He attributes a lot of, your guidance and direction to the success they've had. Tell me a little bit about how it has evolved since he succeeded you.
Well, John's terrific, and I knew John was going to be terrific when I saw him in high school when I recruited him, and then he was here and became a national champion and went to play pros, and then had a very unfortunate eye injury, which curtailed his playing career. And so we got him. I knew he'd be a really outstanding coach. So we got him in his mid-20s instead of 10 years later after his pro career would be over. And he's with me for 8 years and was my associate coach. And my last year of coaching, I had already told my president that I was going to retire the year before. And I wanted to coach 1 year, but there were 2 stipulations. One, that I wasn't going to recruit. And I said, and it really ties into the second one, I want whoever is going to take my place to be with me this last year. And I said, and if it's somebody from outside of Duke, I said, we have someone here who can do that, John Shire. But if it's someone else, make sure it's from our brotherhood. But I want that guy, because we have a big-time program, and things have continued to change. So to stay current in this environment is important. And then to spend a year where you are the coach in waiting, you recruit the kids that are going to play for you and everything. It's a great succession plan, and John, they made a great decision with John. And then I still work at Duke. I also work for the NBA. I'm a special advisor, but I have an office, the same office. I have a lifetime contract, and John and I interact frequently, and we have a great relationship, and he doesn't need much help at all in coaching, but as far as learning the landscape of coaching out off the court, not just recruiting, but what the program does, it takes a while to learn that at this level. And we're at the top level. I'm not saying we're the only one there, but we're there. And John's done an exceptional job, and not just on the court, but off the court. And we have a great relationship. We met yesterday, for a while. And it's just the two of us, and a lot of it is just bouncing ideas, or he has great ideas, and sometimes in expressing them, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "Damn, I wish I had that idea." And so he's smart, good. He's done a great job, and we haven't had a blip. Like our thing has kept going, and that succession has gone about as well as anybody.
Well, he deserves a lot of credit for that, but so do you, because the landscape is littered with guys that followed coaching legends who didn't last very long. It didn't work.
But he didn't follow me. He was with me, and he was with me most of his adult life, and then he's not going to be me, which is good, because he's got to be himself.
Right.
And that's what I tell him all the time. I said, just do what the hell don't worry about, if you do something different, that I'm going to be offended. Understand, if you look back at the 8 years you were an assistant or an associate, did we not do things different? And so you have to continue to adapt. And I actually think, I told him this a few months ago, I said, in the current landscape of college, the last 3 years, I said, you have done a remarkable job. And I don't think I could have done as good a job as you've done, because there'd be a part of me that would live in the past. Like, why are we doing that? We used to do this. And you don't say any of those things. You just say, what the hell are we doing?
Right.
What the hell do we have to do? And you've done that better than I would have done, and I commend you for it.
Very gracious as always. And Mike Krzyzewski with us here. I'd be remiss. I have a sheet. We could talk for like 4 hours, but I can't just monopolize your life. So let me end with this. Your program and your coaching career is so intertwined with the two primary basketball schools in this state, with University of Kentucky and University of Louisville. They have to rank among the most memorable games. Some you won, unfortunately for you. Some you're on the losing side. But obviously the Leitner game comes to mind. But there were other ones. The game where Kevin Ware broke his leg, and you were tremendously gracious about that, by the way, telling Rick, hey, if you need time to warm up, go do what you got to do. But you really, you could make the same thing. You're the rivalry with Carolina. You've played such nationally prominent teams, but is there a special place in the Krzyzewski lore for the University of Louisville and the University of Kentucky?
Yeah, because they're in that elite room of programs that have achieved at the highest level. The history of Louisville's program is a remarkable one, and one of my really favorite people and best coaches of all time is Denny Crum, and they played basketball at the highest level, and obviously Kentucky has done that, over the decades. And so, I think as a competitor, you have you respect everyone because they deserve respect, but you really respect those programs that are in that special room that have shown excellence over decades in with different coaches, and we're all blessed to have amazing fan bases that support. Louisville has one of the very best fan bases, and which is kind of interesting. Louisville's right in between, Indiana, Kentucky, right there. How the heck did that happen? It happened because of great people and a great city, which and the fans that support the game they love.
Yeah, no, it is a great legacy. When I moved here, and all the programs were great when I moved here. Indiana was great, Louisville was great, Kentucky was great. I was like, this is if you love basketball, this is like being a fashion designer going to Paris. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, they embrace the game, man, and they year round. Year round.
Yes, they really do. Mike, it is an absolute joy every time I get to talk to you. Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear you're in great health and keeping so busy, and hopefully we'll cross paths at a V Foundation event or somewhere down the road, and I would look forward to that. And my best to Mickey as well. You take care, and thanks again.
All right, Bob. A pleasure being on. Thank you.
Big deal.